Okay, good evening, everyone. You're all welcome to our online class. That's financial reporting for ACC exams, and also it's suitable for ICANN examination. The last time we met, we started discussion on IS 40, but prior to that, we looked into IS 38, that's intangible assets, where we said intangible assets are identifiable non-monetary assets without physical. Take a look at some issues or accounting issues around the recognition of internally generated intangibles. And generally, they are not recognized except certain conditions are met where development expenditure will require capitalization. And from there, we started looking into IS 40, that's investment property. So I could remember clearly that we said investment property are land or building or part of land or building, held for capital appreciation or to earn rental income. So that was the issue around that. And I made emphasis to say, once it is not land or part of land or building, then don't even think of IS 40. And of course, it has to be held for capital appreciation and to earn rental income. And if I have a land for undecided future use, I can also take a look at apply IS 40 investment property. It's going to really suffice. And from there, I was able to differentiate between owners occupied property and of course investment property. I think that was the question that we're looking at, and I have to go to the drawing board, to take a look at what happens between owners occupied property and investment property. So let me quickly do a revision or a recap on that. So we said on initial recognition, you apply cost model on owners occupied property. Okay, you also apply cost model on investment property. So obviously, when you're doing cost minus accumulated depreciation, of course, accumulated impairment losses, so that you have your carrying amount. Okay, so that was the issue around that. And I also look at on subsequent measurement. What happens? Remember that you apply 16 for owners occupied property. Okay. On subsequent measurement for owners occupied property, you can either measure at cost or evaluation model. Okay, it's either at cost or evaluation model. But when it comes to investment property, it's either you measure at cost or fair value model. Okay, it's either you measure at cost or fair value model. Even though fair value and evaluation, they are the same because you're looking at the market value under fair value model, and cost under evaluation, you are evaluating to its market value. Okay, which is also the same thing as fair value. But when it comes to revaluation gain under owners occupied property, I take it straight to other comprehensive income in line with IS 16. Revaluation gain, I take it to other comprehensive income. It's also known as revaluation surplus. Okay, when I have valuation gain or I revalue to market value or look at the fair value under IS 40, I take it to profit or loss account. Okay, take it to profit or loss account. Now, when I come to revaluation deficit, otherwise known as revaluation loss or downward revaluation under owners occupied property, where do I take it to? I take it to profit or loss account. Okay, I take it to profit or loss account. So you need to take note of that. Okay, now when I go to revaluation loss, that's revaluation downward under fair value model in accordance with IS 40. I take it straight to my profit or loss account. So invariably, revaluation gain goes to OCI under IS 16, owners occupied property. The revaluation loss goes to P or L. When I come to investment property, both revaluation gain and loss goes to profit or loss account. Okay, they also talked about depreciation. Remember, if I revalue an asset under IS 16, I continue to depreciate. But when I revalue an asset under investment property, fair value, I don't depreciate. So those are the issues that we were able to deal with in our last class. So we stopped at changes in use. So what happens if I normally have an asset under IAS 16, then I want to transfer to IAS 40. So for example, I have a land that I use for administrative purpose, or I had an head office building that I use in production of goods and services where I apply 16, then I vacate that building to be rented out, okay? So obviously it's going to now be, IAS 40 will not apply. So what is the accounting treatment? So that's what we are looking at here. So let's look at A. If an asset is transferred from being PPE, I have an asset from being PPE, okay, and it's being rented out as investment property, okay? So I have an asset PPE, I'm renting it out as investment property, and fair value model is used for investment. So all I need to do is to revalue the assets as per IAS 16. That means I create a valuation reserve and I will transfer at fair value, okay? I revalue the assets as per IAS 16, then I can create the valuation reserve. And obviously, when I revalue upward, okay, I take the upward valuation to my OCI, so I can have valuation reserve within component of equity. Okay, so I now transfer at fair value. If cost model is used for investment property, okay, I simply transfer the carrying amount. It's as simple as that, and I will continue to depreciate. So I have a property under IAS 16. I'm transferring to investment property. And in my investment property, I use fair value model. I will revalue the PPE to its market value, so I have a valuation reserve, and I transfer at fair value. It's as simple as that. Then if I use cost model for my investment property, I simply transfer the carrying amount, okay? Then the second scenario that could happen is if an asset is transferred from being rented out as investment property. So I have investment property for my asset, and I have to now start using, I want to start using it for administrative purpose, that's PPE, and I use fair value model for investment property, okay? I also have to revalue as per IAS 40, okay? So that I can create gain or loss in my P or L. I revalue as per IAS 40, so that I can create a gain or loss, in my profit or loss account. Then I transfer the PPE at fair value. Can you see both scenarios? I have to transfer at what's it called? Fair value. Then if cost model is used, I transfer the current carrying amount. So I think we can look at the question to demonstrate all we have learned. Okay, so we can look at the question to demonstrate what we have learned. Okay, all right. So let's see. In this first illustration, Lavender owns a property which it rents out to some of its employees. The property was purchased for 30 million on 1st January 2022 and had a useful life of 30 years at that date. On 1st January 2027, it had a market value of 50 million and its remaining useful life remained unchanged. Management wishes to measure properties at fair value where this is allowed by accounting standards. Required. How should the property be treated in the financial statement of Lavender for the year ended 31st December 2027? Okay, so what's the issue in this question? Now, if you look at here, this is IAS 40. You are dealing with IAS 40 investment property. Now, it said Lavender owns a property which he rents out to some of its employees. Okay, so if a company has a property and is rented out to its employee, which standard will I apply? Is it IAS 16 or IAS 40? Okay, remember we said the last time that investment property deals with land or building held for capital appreciation or for investment purpose or to earn rental income, okay? So I'm holding it for capital appreciation so that I can earn, or I can also earn rental income. Now, when a company has a property and it rents it out, to its employee, direct staff that are working with them. Now, you might be tempted to say they are holding that property for rental income, but in substance, they can be making profit from their employee, and as such, the employee works for the company, and so you can say technically that that property is held in production of goods and services because those employees are actually working directly with the company, and as such, you apply IAS 16. Okay, so once you see those scenarios, you should take note. Now, the property was purchased for 30 million on 1st January 20x2 and had a useful life of 30. Brilliant. Now, so I needed to get the carrying amount because here it gives me the cost of that asset. And if you have been in this class, I've always emphasized that date is very important. So now say on 1st January 20x7, it had a market value of 50 million. I needed to get my carrying amount before this date. So all I need to do is to look at the cost of this asset, which is 30 million, okay? And it has a useful life of 30 years, so that I can get my depreciation and I apply it on the cost. Then I have my, what's it called? The carrying amount as at 1st January 20x7 or December 20x6, okay? I will say 30 million, okay? 30 million divided by 30, I have 1. So 1 million depreciation every year. So the question is, how many years will I depreciate? Remember, I've always said date is very important. This asset was purchased on 1st January, okay? This asset was purchased on 1st January 20x2. Now, it had a market value on 20x7. Can you see that? It had a market value of 50 million on 20x7. So as at that date, I needed to get the carrying amount. So how many years will I depreciate? I have always said it that use your fingers to count. So when I buy this asset, 1st January 20x2, that means by December 20x2, I will depreciate. 1, December 20x2, December 20x3, 20x4, 20x5, 20x6. So I needed to get my carrying amount as at 20x6, December. That is 5 years. So remember, I've already gotten my depreciation per year, which is 1 million. And I'll say 1 million multiplied by 5, making 5 million. Okay, so I'm still going to show you the solution. I'm just trying to break the question down, right? So I'll now apply that 5 million on this 30 million. I have 25. So that is my carrying amount as at December 20x6. Then on 1st January 20x7, the next day, I was told that the fair value was 15 million and it had and the remaining useful life is unchanged. So I will now revalue from that 25 to 50 million so that I can have a revaluation increase. You know, I can have a valuation increase of 25, from 25 to 25. So I have a valuation increase on 25. So the question is this. Now look at here. They said management wishes to measure properties at fair value. So now they are looking at this property as investment property, but this is not investment property. This is actually IAS 16. So that revaluation increase, where will I take it to? Is it going to my profit or loss, or is it going to other comprehensive income? Obviously, it's going to other comprehensive income. That's what we did the last time. And I've also emphasized that at the beginning of this class. So what it means is, since this is IAS 16, property, plant, and equipment, any revaluation increase goes to OCI. Revaluation surplus goes to profit or loss account. So that 25 goes to OCI. That's exactly what the examiner is testing here. Then the new kind amount is now 50, and it says the useful life remain unchanged. And the examiner says I should calculate the value as at the end of the year. That's 20x7. That means I will have to also depreciate for 1 year as at that year end. So what will be my depreciation? Remember, I've already depreciated for 5 years out of these 30 years. I have 25 years left. And the new kind amount is now 50. Then I'll pick my calculator and calculate the new depreciation, because asset carried under revaluation model in accordance with IAS 16 will continue to be depreciated. If this asset has been carried under fair value model in accordance with IAS 40, I will no longer depreciate. Okay, so I will now say 50 divided by 25. I have 2. So that means 2 is my depreciation, and the kind amount as at December 20X7 is going to be 48. It's as simple as that. Is that what we have done? Can you see? So this is a kind amount at the end of the year. I only apply the principle and already know. So remember that revaluation increase that we talked about. That is the 25. Where do I take it to? I take it straight to other comprehensive income. Okay, so that is that. That is that. Okay, that is that. I can see an hand raised up. Do you have any question? Go to the chat room and say something there. Let me know what you're saying. I'm still waiting for our people to join. Some of our guys to join. Probably they are not home yet, but the class has to continue. They have access to the recording anytime they are ready for that. So Harry, if you have something to say, please, you can use the chat room. I see your hand being raised up. And I'm not really too sure if you can hear me actually. So let me try to, because I couldn't see your mic icon. Okay, sorry, can you hear me? Okay, sorry about that. I'm trying to deal with an issue here. Okay, brilliant. Okay, now, sorry. So I go to question, the next question that we have here. Okay, sorry. Yeah, so let's go to, let me just take a look at question 2. So let's see. It said, ABC owns a building that is used as its head office. Okay, so I use it for my head office. Obviously, I apply a 16. On 1st January 20X1, the building, which was measured under cost model, had a kind amount of 500. On this date, the fair value of the building was 600,000. ABC vacated the premises. Okay. Oh, okay. Now, however, directors decided to keep the building in order to rent it out to tenants and to potentially benefit from increases in property prices. ABC measures investment properties at fair value. On 31st December 20X1, the property had a fair value of 625,000. Discuss accounting treatment of the building in the financial statement of ABC for the year ended 31st December 20X1. Okay, so so this also talks about changes in use and obviously, or maybe transfer from what's it called? From PPE to investment property. And fair value model is used. So that means I will revalue as per IAS, what's it called? IAS 16. So I can create a revaluation reserve that I transfer at fair value. So what do I do here? He has already computed the carrying amount for me. He said it is 500. Okay. Now on this date, the fair value of building was 600. So I revalue to 600. It's as simple as that. So that revaluation increase of 100, why do I take it to? I take it to OCI. Then now, so I have vacated. And they said at the end of the year, the fair value is now 625. So what happens? So that means I will revalue from 600 to 625. Okay. That 25 goes to profit or loss because I've already transferred to investment property. And that's the end of that question. So can you see the 100 now? It goes to OCI. Can you see? Valuation reserve. And this 25 goes to P&L. And because it is held at fair value, I no longer depreciate. Okay. I no longer depreciate. So that is very instructive over there. Now, so let me quickly take you through impact on financial statements. Okay. Impact on financial statements. Impact on financial statement. What does that mean? If the same asset, is carried under cost model, and of course, another company, say company B, also carry the same asset at fair value, what will be the impact on the financial position? Okay. So that's exactly what I want to look into now. Okay. So that's exactly what we want to look into now. Now, assume that two separate entities, A and B, both buy an identical building for 10 million on 1st January 2021 and classify them as investment property. Each of the buildings is expected to use 50. By December 2021, the fair value of buildings is 11 million. NCA measures investment property. Sorry. Sorry. Okay, sorry about that. I'm trying to deal with some of us that can't hear the lecture. Okay, now NCA measures, investment property using cost model and B use, what's it called? Investment property. It's very simple. Now, for entity A that use investment, use a cost model, obviously the current amount of that asset, you look at 50, 10 divided by 50, you have, is that 2? Okay, so the current amount in the account will be 9.8. Then for the company that use what's it called? Fair value is going to recognize that 11. So we would have, increase or revalue from 10 to 11. With the valuation increase goes to profit or loss. Okay. The company A, because it uses cost model, that 200,000 goes to income statement as depreciation. Whereas NTV we recognize gain on investment property. Can you see? So now what happened now is NCB obviously the profit will be higher than entity A. Even the current amount of the asset of entity B is also higher. So assuming no other difference between the two entities, NCB will report higher profits. Can you see that? And therefore, earnings per share, and of course, earnings per share will also, go up. NCB we also show higher equity in the statement of financial position, and the gearing will fall because of the what's it called? The revaluation. Okay. Because of retained earnings. Yeah, it goes through retained earnings. Okay, and as this example shows the fact that it's 40 per trust for accounting policy, it could be argued that it reduces comparability in the financial position. Okay. So that is that, about that. So just about telling us the impact on the financial statement. Okay. Now we have another question here. So let me see if I can quickly deal with that question, this question. Then we can go ahead and into the other standards. Okay. Now, Celine, a manufacturing company, purchases a property for 1 million on 1st January 2021 for its investment potentials. The land element of the cost is believed to be 400,000. So I'm interested in this. Okay. So the land element is 400, and the property is actually for 1 million on 1st January. I'm also interested in that, in the dates. Okay. Now, and the building element is expected to have a useful life of 50 years. This is also very important. The building element, I can depreciate the building, but I can't depreciate land, right? Now, except in some rare occasion. Now, at December 20x1, local property indices suggest that the fair value of the property has risen to 1.1. Okay, so that's brilliant. Okay, so now said in the requirement, show how the property be presented in the financial statement as of December 20x1 if Celine adopts cost model and of course fair value model. Remember, I just showed impact on the financial statements. Okay, so if I use cost model, so obviously I'm going to depreciate. So all I need to do is to look at the building, which is 600,000, because it already told me that the land element is 400,000. Okay, so I look at the building, so which is 600,000. So what's the useful life? It said 50 years. So I pick my calculator so that I can get my depreciation. Remember, I bought 1st January 20x1, and I'm preparing as at December 20x1, that same year. I will depreciate for 1 year. Is that okay? Now, so I'll now say 600,000 divided by 50, it gives me 12. Okay, so that's the depreciation that goes straight to my profit or loss. So I remove that 12 from the 600,000. Okay, so if I say 600,000 minus the answer, it gives me 588. Okay, then remember that the land element is 400. So I add back to 400. So the kind amount of this asset is going to be 988 in the balance sheet. Don't worry, I'll show you the answer. I'm just trying to illustrate that. Then if it is carried at fair value, I will not depreciate. Okay, I will just go ahead and recognize 1.1 million at the end of the year. Okay, I go ahead to recognize 1.1 million at the end of the year. Then that gain, the valuation gain goes to profit or loss account. Okay, it goes to profit or loss account. So that's what you are seeing here. So can you see the 988 here? As simple as that. So how did you get here? You just said 600 divided by 50. Then I depreciate for just 1 year because I purchased this property on 1st January 2021 and I'm preparing an account December 2021. So I just depreciate for 1 year. Okay, so that's that about investment property. So you can take a look at other questions that are there. And I need to take a close for that. It's quite straightforward. So in case you have concerns, please let me know. Okay, let me know. Okay, so I go straight to I-16 because of our time. Investment property. Property, plant, and equipment. And basically, I started IS-40 that I just concluded last Tuesday. And there was a question I used to differentiate between IS-40 and I-16. I also did a recap in this class. Okay, so I've tried to really differentiate between them, but let me say it again. So let me go around 4 standards: IS-2 inventory, IS-38 that we also dealt with on Tuesday, IS-16, then IS-40. Those 4 standards are very important at this level. So let me just say this before I go straight into IS-16. So I will just go straight to key areas that you expect the examiner to bother you on when it comes to PPE, property, plant, and equipment. But let me quickly do a random check on all those 4 standards. If I have an asset held for sale in the ordinary course of business, I will apply IS-2 inventory. Okay, so for example, I am a car dealer. I sell car. I'm holding those cars as held for sale. They are not PPE. They are inventory. So you need to understand that. Holding an asset held for sale in the ordinary course of a business, all those assets are inventory, okay? Because I'm making money out of them. If I hold assets for administrative purpose or in production of goods and services, I apply IS-16, property, plant, and equipment. If I have an asset that I cannot see or touch, identifiable non-monetary assets without physical substance, I apply IS-38, intangible assets. If I have land or building, or part of land or building, or both, held for capital appreciation or to earn rental income, I apply IS-40, investment property. So what it means is this: if I have a car and I use that car for Uber to earn money, or I use it for Taxify, I am earning money, that is not investment property. Do you know why? The car is not a land, neither is it a building. So it has to be land or building for it to qualify to be an investment property. But the fact that I have a land or building does not automatically mean that it's an investment property. I must have held it for capital appreciation or to earn rental income. Because if I have a land where I do my business, or I have a building for an office where I do business, that is not investment property. It is property, plant, and equipment, because I use it for administrative purpose or in production of goods and services. Okay, I just want to understand that, so that's why I paused a little bit for seconds. Okay, sorry. Okay. Now, I've already defined as 16. So what's the issue around here? The first thing I needed to tell us here is, how do we measure PPE? But before I go there, I think I'm interested in what constitutes the costs of PPE. But remember that before I can recognize an asset on my account, basically 3 conditions has to be met. the item must meet the definition of an asset. We did that about 4 weeks ago. And of course, the cost can be measured reliably, and it is probable that future economic benefit flows to the entity. So obviously, I don't think the examiner bothers you about that, except it forms part of a discussion paper, but not maybe at this level. Okay, then on initial measurement, that means the first time I am recognizing this asset on my account. Okay, so when you say measurement, measurements means value. How much will I use to recognize the asset? So I use cost model, right? And on subsequent measurement, that means the following year, I can decide to continue to use cost model, or I use revaluation. Remember, under S40, I've already differentiated all of this. So I'm just saying it again, right? Okay. But the question is, what constitutes the cost of property, plant, and equipment? 3 things constitute the cost of PPE. The examiner can pick you up. Can also pick you up on excluded costs of PPE. Okay. What constitutes the cost of PPE? Number 1, the purchase price. Okay, it's somewhere in your notes. Let me try. Most of the time when I lecture, I don't even look at those notes, but let me try to put the slides up as I'm lecturing. Okay, so the first thing is the purchase price. You are giving discount, sales tax, and all of that. You are going to remove all of them. Okay, so if I go to the market and I buy an AC, how much did I pay? Okay, so if I pay, say, 5 million naira, for example, did they give me any discounts? Maybe they give me 2% discount. So I bought it for maybe 4.9 something million, right? Did I pay import taxes on it? Did I pay VAT and whatever? I had everything together. So that is the purchase price. I only remove the discount. Okay. Now, number 2, any costs that incur that are directly attributable in bringing the assets to the location and condition as intended by management. Okay, that means it's capable of operating in a manner intended by management. So, say for example, I go to Meccano and I bought a plant, what's it called, heavy duty generator, for example. Okay, I would have paid Meccano. So whatever amount I've paid, that is the purchase price. Then from Meccano, it's going to be transported to my location. So I pay for transport, I paid for handling, I pay for even testing and running costs. Maybe after installation, they are running it to be sure all those, the gen is supplying well and all of that. All the money or the cash I spent, they form part of PPE. Okay, so that's why it is the directly attributable cost in bringing the asset to the location and condition necessary to or that makes it capable to operate as intended by management. Okay, so it becomes part of the cost of PPE. So you need to understand that. Okay. So for example, employee costs, you can see some examples there. So the examiner can pick you up and say, what are the directly attributable costs of PPE? So just tell them employee costs, provided is directly attributable. Okay. Cost of site preparation, delivery costs, installation, even sometimes borrowing costs. Okay. I've taken you on borrowing costs. So that means if I borrow money to acquire a qualifying asset, part of the cost of borrowing can actually be capitalized. Okay, testing cost, professional fee, and all of that. So you need to take note of that. Then number 3, I said three costs makes PPE. The cost of dismantling or removing the assets at the end of its life. There's some asset that after you install, you have to remove it. So once you have an obligation is you don't have any realistic alternative obligating event than for you to settle that obligation. So if I have future obligation to remove that asset, then the cost of removing it, even though it's in the future, I have to discount it to present value and add it as part of the cost of PPE, and I start to unwind up to the next 10 years, 20 years, as the case may be. Okay, So I have successfully told you what constitutes the cost of PPE. Then the excluded costs, there are just 4 of them. In case the examiner asks you, cost of opening a new facility, okay, they are excluded costs of PPE. The cost of introducing a new product or service. I open a new facility, I introduce a new product or service, or cost of conducting business in a new location, okay, or with a new class of customer. They are not part of cost of PPE. And the last one is administration and other general overhead costs. So in my head, I know that 4 things constitute the cost of PPE. Cost of opening a new facility, okay? So you can see it up there. Cost of opening a new facility. I don't put it there. Cost of introducing a new product or services. For example, promotional materials, advertising, and all of that. The cost of conducting new business in a new location or with new class of customer. General overheads and administration. Okay, costs. So they are also excluded. Please take notes. These are highly examinable areas, okay? So that when you are studying, you just go straight to all of these issues that I'm bringing on. So now, defer consideration. What does it mean? You must have seen this in group accounting. Defer means I will pay in future. I try to defer, okay? Probably because I was giving some credit. So all you need to do, if you need to recognize the amount, is to what's it called? Discount to present value. Then use a formula for that. Can you remember your formula? 1 plus r raised to power minus n. Okay, or you'd say 1 over 1 plus r raised to power n. Okay, so it depends on whichever one you want to adopt. Okay, so let me take a look at this illustration to demonstrate that. If an oil rig was built in the sea, the cost to be capitalized is likely to include the cost of constructing the asset and the present value of cost of dismantling it. Now, if the asset costs 10 million to construct and it will cost 4 million to remove in 20 years, then the present value of that 4 million must be calculated because I have an obligation to remove. Now, let's say the interest rate is 5%. So how do I do my present value? So this should be raised per, okay, it's 1 over. Okay, so this over is already taking care of that minus. So when I look at this 4 million, that in 20 years' time, the present value, today's value, is 1.5. So please use your calculator. Make sure you get that figure. If you're not getting that figure, please raise an alarm. Okay. Now, so this 1.5, I will now add it as part of the cost of the asset. I will now depreciate that figure over 20 years. Okay. So I have to unwind because I have a liability. Remember that 4 million. I will have to spend it in 20 years' time. So it's a liability. I will now start unwinding so that the effect of that 1 million, I'm charging it in my income statement as finance cost every year. I'll be increasing the current amount of my liability. So what do I do? What do I do? You simply apply this 5% on that figure. How much is the figure? What is the figure? 1.5. Okay, let me see if I'm going to get that figure. I'm just applying that principle. 0.5, 0.05, applied by 1507 558. I got 75. I got this figure. Okay, so I got this figure. So what I do, I will debit finance cost. I'll credit liability. So that's what they call unwinding of discount. So that's why it's saying that this increase is taken to finance cost in the statement of financial position. Remember, I'm using that asset every year. So the cost element, I'll be putting it in my performance statement. Okay, so please take note of that. Now let's look at this question because of our time. An entity started construction on a building for its own use. So we're giving this information. Now say the following information are also relevant. Material costs were greater than anticipated. On investigation, it was found that material costing 10 million had been spoiled, and therefore wastage of 15 million was incurred as a result of faulty design. Okay, as a result of this problem, work on the building ceased for a fortnight during October 2007. And it is expected that approximately 9 million labor costs relate to this period. The building was completed on July 2026 and occupied on 1st September 2026. Now, calculate the cost of the building that will be included in tangible non-current assets. Okay, so this guy wants me to calculate the cost of the building. So what do? I remember three things: purchase price, directly attributable cost, and cost of dismantling. That's it. So I will now go to the question. You say purchase price of land. It will be included. Stamp duty. It should be directly attributable. It also be included. Legal fee, because I have this construction. So I pay. It's directly attributable. Site preparation is also attributable. So when I come to material, you already told me something here. You said 15 million was incurred. So out of this material cost, I'm going to remove that figure. You also talked about labor. You also said, okay, you remember it's 10 and 15. So I'm removing those figures. Then you also talked about labor. He said 9 million. Can you see that? So I also remove it. But he said period first, okay, it's 150. So I also remove that. So now said architect fee is directly attributable. General overhead is excluded. I will not include that. So let's see the answer. Can you see? So remove that 25 million, 10, 15. Did you see that? And of course, that 9 million, then 30, so that you can have the cost of PPE. And that is that. That is that. That is that. Any question for me on that in 60 seconds before I move on? There's no question for me. Okay, but anytime you have questions, I'm always available. Now, subsequent measurements, subsequent expenditure. Okay, now listen to me here. Please be with me here. Subsequent expenditure. Listen, after I have computed my cost of PPE, three things: the purchase price, cost directly attributable, and cost of dismantling, I have recognized on my account. Okay, so let's say plant or machinery. Now, subsequently, obviously, I'm going to be spending money probably to maintain the assets. Normally, subsequent expenditure are expensed. So when I say expense, that means it's taken to profit or loss account. Okay. So for example, I bought fuel. Remember that the fuel I bought earlier, when I was doing installation for testing and all of that, I would have capitalized. Capitalized means I would have added it as part of the cost of the asset in my balance sheet. But after the asset is ready or is available for use, I will not capitalize again. Any other money I spend is going to be expensed. However, if on subsequent expenditure, either of these three things has happened, I can decide to capitalize. What does that mean? If I spend money on this particular asset subsequently, and it's going to enhance the economic benefits provided by the assets. For example, it has extended the useful life. Let's say, for example, I have a car that I use for business purpose. I now overhaul the car. I changed the engine. I did the upholstery. I did so many things that now elongated the life of that vehicle, maybe 2 years more. It now elongated to about 4 or 5 years because of the repair or renovation or whatever I've done on that particular property. So obviously I can decide to capitalize. So whatever money I've spent, I add it as part of the cost of the asset, and I depreciate over the remaining useful life. So you have to check in an exam scenario to be sure that it's going to enhance the economic benefits derived from that asset. 2, if it relates to an overhaul, okay, or require major inspection of the asset. For example, if you go to aviation, there are some inspections that are done on aircraft. they are required by the law. Okay, so if it requires major inspection or major overhaul, in fact, sometimes you don't even need to wait for aircraft tire to get expired or to get worn out before you change it. It's required by the law to say you have to look at certain criteria, the cycle, the landing, and all of that. Okay, so if it relates to major overhaul or it requires major inspection, then you might decide to capitalize. Okay, then if it's about replacing a component of a complex asset, three things, don't forget. Number three, if it's about replacing the components of a complex asset, that's what they call componentization. What does that mean? For example, if you say an aircraft, okay, there are some components in an aircraft that are depreciated separately from the entire aircraft. A typical aircraft can use up to 50 years, okay, but there are some components that are have to replaced every 2 years, every 3 years, every 5 years, okay, and they are depreciated separately. So when you are replacing those components, obviously, the original component will be written off and the new component will have to be capitalized. That is what is meant by subsequent expenditure. So all you need to learn is this. If I see a scenario question and the examiner is asking me how much will be capitalized subsequently on PPE, I think of three things. One, is it going to enhance the economic benefit of the asset? For example, that's allocated the overhaul or require major inspection, or does it relate to replacing the component of an asset? Okay, that's it. So let's look at the question to demonstrate what I've said. A piece of machinery has an annual service costing, how much is that? 10,000. During the most recent service, decided to replace the part of the engineering, meaning that it will work fast. And produce more units, okay? Produce more units per hour. So the cost of replacement is actually 20,000. What will be the expenditure? Is it capital or revenue? So when I see this question, what comes to my mind? Three things. Is it going to increase the economic benefit, or it said it's going to work faster and produce more units per hour? So most likely I can decide to capitalize this 20, then the annual service is what's it called? 10. So the service normally you expense, okay? And inside the cost of replacement, in fact, it even relates to replacing. Did you see that? So I can decide to capitalize. So that 10,000 is a revenue expenditure. Can you see that? You expense. And the 20,000 replacement part of future economic benefit, so the capital expenditure, because it will increase it will now increase the non-current assets in your account. So that's what you're doing. Okay. So we also talked about major inspections. I've already explained that earlier. I've talked about cost model. That's initial recognition. And I also talked about evaluation model, where you take it to the market value subsequently. Okay. When you take it to the market value. So when you revalue upward, you take it to OCI. Okay. And when you revalue downward, you take it to P or L. So you need to learn that. You need to learn that, okay? So I've already made a lot of clarification around that. Now, what happens to depreciation? Bear with me here. At this level, PP is the biggest standard, but it's very simple. It's just the biggest, just big. So there's so many things to learn. But I've tried to break it down. So just master these areas that I'm talking about. So those are the areas you expect the examiner to pick you up from, okay? Now, depreciation is systematic allocation of depreciable amount on the cost of an asset. We did that about 4 weeks ago when we looked into IS 36, impairment of assets. So I took the time to really, explain depreciation. But what I'm interested here is, when do I depreciate? When do I start to depreciate? That is my interest on here. Okay. Now, two questions. Is it when the asset is ready for use or when the asset is available? No, sorry. When the asset is put to use or when the asset is available for use? When I depreciate. So say, for example, I want to buy this phone in the market, right? So I paid the purchase price of the phone, transport, testing, maybe they tried to help me to install some software, right? I added everything together and I had the cost of the phone, say 100,000, for example. Okay, so when do I start to depreciate? You know, I can do all of that and I didn't use the phone. So that means the asset is available for use after I've spent all those money and is operating as intended by management. That means this asset is available for use. So the question is it when it is available or when it is put to use? Put to use is I now started using it. Okay, maybe I'm a digital marketer. I have to start, handling my client social media and all of that. So when do I start to depreciate? This is the answer. You depreciate or depreciation starts when the asset is available for use. Okay, I think I said that on S38, on last Tuesday. So the same thing with amortization. So depreciation starts when the asset is available for you. So regardless of whether I put it to use or not, okay, so I have to start depreciation once it is ready, available for use. That's what 16 says. So that's my interest here. So nobody really bothers you around that. So depreciation expense, you debit your P&L, you credit accumulated depreciation. Now, it's even here. Can you see commencement of depreciation? Okay. Now, when do you cease depreciation? Depreciation stops between the earliest of when the asset is classified as held for sale, we did that under IFRS 5, or is derecognized. I take it off in the balance sheet, or probably, what can make me to take it off? Maybe I disposed, right? So maybe I sell the asset, so I can decide to cease depreciation. So you could see that here. Okay. Now, if an asset becomes idle, or is withdrawn, or is retired, depreciation will continue. That's what you are saying here. Depreciation does not cease when an asset becomes idle, or is withdrawn, or retired from active use. Depreciation will not stop. So you need to take it. Okay. So let's look at this question, for example, just to remind ourselves on how to compute depreciation. Sorry. Okay. Now, the asset costs 100,000 and has an expected useful life of 10 years. The purchaser intends to use the asset for 6 years. At the point, the expected residual value is 40. So what's the depreciation? I just say cost minus residual value. So this 100 minus 40, what's the useful life? Divided by 6 years, right? So whatever I have there is my depreciable amount. So that's quite straightforward. We are dealt with all of this before now. Then you talk about useful life, okay? How do you compute the, what's it called? The useful life of an asset, okay? Basically, useful life is a matter of judgment, but in determining the useful life, you need to consider the period over which the asset is expected to be available to the entity. Then, for example, some certain machines, you consider the number of production or similar units. So the examiner won't really bother you, and he except they ask you what are the factors to consider in determining the useful life of an asset. Okay, so let's take a look at this question. An asset purchased for 100,000 on 1st January 2025 with straight line depreciation of 20 per annum being charged, 5-year life, no residual value, the annual review of assets lives is undertaken for this particular asset, and the remaining life is 8 years. The financial statement of the year end 31st December have been prepared. Now, say, what is the depreciation charge for the asset in December? Okay, so what do we do here? So you simply come here to say it was purchased for this and a straight line depreciation of 20. Can you see? So I depreciate every year for 20. Now I bought it 1st January 20X5. I have said it earlier and I'll keep saying it. Date is very important when you are dealing with financial reporting question. So I bought it 1st January 20X5. The examiner is asking me, what is the depreciation that will be charged 2 years after? Did you see that? So that means I need to depreciate December 20X5. I'll depreciate December 20X6. Did you see that? Because it's the annual review of the asset life. Sorry, I think the network is fluctuating. The annual review of the asset lives is undertaken. For this particular asset, the remaining useful life as our 1st January is 8 years. So that means I will depreciate up till December 20X6. So if I do 20,000 multiplied by 2, it gives me 40,000. So as at December 20X, the kind amount of this asset is 60,000. Did you see that? So it now told me that the remaining useful life is 8 years. So I now say 60 divided by 8. Whatever I have is my depreciation for that year. That's December 20X7. And that's exactly what they did here. Okay. So once you understand it, you can do it in your own way. You don't need to, you don't necessarily have to do the way it has been done here. So you can take a look at that particular, another illustration there. Okay. Accounting for revaluation. Okay. Okay, those ones are straightforward. Okay, so let's look at revaluation. So revaluation, I've actually explained it. It's like you are taking the asset, to its market value. So that's why I'm saying it's the asset from cost to valuation. Then remove existing accumulated depreciation provision. So if you already have provision for accumulated depreciation, I'm going to remove them. Okay. So that's why I said debit non-current assets. If you revalue, okay, then debit accumulated depreciation to eliminate existing, provision and credit evaluation surplus. That's OCI. That's what you're doing. Okay. Now, evaluation gain on losses. I've said it. Gain goes to gain goes to OCI, and losses goes to profit or loss. I've said even from my S40, anytime I'm taking all those standards, I take them together in my explanation so that we don't mix things up. Okay. So you could see. Okay. Let me just look at this question to see how evaluation gain is being treated. So we're giving this extras. You now said the building is revalued on 1st January 20X8 for 1.4 to, and the useful life is 40 years. So what do we do? Okay, so this is the cost of the building. Okay, and as at this date, this is a carrying amount, and they now revalue to this amount. So I simply revalue from this figure to this figure, and it has a remaining useful life of 40 years. So I continue to depreciate. So the difference between the two goes to my OCI. So that's exactly what they have done. Can you see? So this 140 divided by 40, I get a new depreciation, which is 35, and I also remove it from here so that I can get 1365. Okay, then I take that gain to what's it called? OCI. How did I get the gain? I simply bring on that balance brought forward. Can you see that? So that I can get that figure. Oh, let me show you. Okay, so how did I get 1365? 1365. So let me press my calculator. Okay, so I simply say 14 minus 35. Depreciation is 35. How did I get 35? I will say this 14 divided by 40 years. Can you see? I get 35. That goes into my income statement as depreciation. And I remove that 35 from this 14 so that I can get this 1365. How did I get revaluation gain? I simply revalue, this is a kind amount. So if I say 14 minus 1056, I get 344. So I revalue from this 1056 to this 144. So it goes to my, what's it called? Gain, profit, what do they call it? OCI. Is that okay? And that's what you also have in your equity session. That's it. At the end of the question. So you are just working. You don't bother about working. At least what I've explained. Okay. Let me see what I can bring you up again. So all these ones are also still demonstrating what I've said. So please just go through them. Okay. Now, let me explain this. Asset carried at a revaluation deficit and is now revalued upward. Is that okay? Normally, if value an asset downward under I-16, I take it to profit or loss because that is a revaluation loss. So you're now saying asset carried at revaluation loss or deficit, I now revalue upward. Now, this is the logic. If an asset that has been previously revalued downward is now revalued upward, that revaluation increase, normally would have gone to OCI. But because there is a loss already recorded in the profit or loss, so that revaluation upward, I will first take it to that profit or loss and take it out. If I have a balance, I will now take it to my OCI. That's what they call reversing previously recognized revaluation loss. So let me see whether that what I've just explained is written. Let me just see, because I just saw this caption and I just explained. But let me read what it said. It said an asset might be carried at an amount lower than the original cost of the in the statement of profit and loss. Is that what I just said? To the extent of the previously recognized expense. And the part of the increase above in the previous recognized expense now recognized in the usual way in other components. So if I have a balance, so let me give you an example. So let's say, for example, I revalue upward, I have 10,000. Is that okay? And that 10,000, I should have taken it to OCI. But because I have a loss of, let's say, 3,000 in my P&L. So from the 10,000, I take it to the P&L. I can only knock out to the extent of the previously recognized expense. So I knock that 3,000 out. The 7,000 that is remaining, I take it to OCI. That's what they're saying. Asset carried at revalued revaluation surplus, now revalue downward. So what it means is I've already revalued upward. I've already recognized that revaluation increase in OCI last year. This year, I revalue downward. Normally, if I revalue downward, I take it to P&L. But because there's a balance in the OCI, that revaluation downward, which should have been an expense, I'll first take it to my OCI, knock it out. If I have a balance, I'll now take it to P&L. That's what they're saying. That's what they're saying. Okay, that's what they are saying. I think I should stop there. I'm not sure. I really wish, okay, we are done. Oh, we're actually done. Okay, so the last thing I need to now take you is gain on disposal. Gain or loss on disposal. Okay, gain or loss on disposal. You have a pro forma that you need to use. It's as simple as that. You will look at the cost of the assets and the accumulated depreciation so that you have the carrying amount of that asset. Look at the costs of the assets plus accumulated depreciation so that you have carrying amount. So now look at sales proceed. How much did I sell? And remove cost to sell. So if the carrying amount, for example, is 500,000 and I sell it, I sold the asset above 500,000. That is a profit. That is a profit on disposal because I sell it more than what it was in my books. If I sell below, say 350, that is loss on disposal. So one hand, how much is my carrying amount? The examiner did not give me carrying amount. I look at the costs, take a look at accumulated depreciation. On the other hand, how much did I sell the asset? Is there any cost to sell or directly cost of disposal? I remove it so that I can have net sales proceeds. Okay, then I compare the two. You tell me whether I have gain. So you already have the pro forma here. So this is what I was saying. Can you see? Sell on disposal, less disposal costs. Then you have net disposable value. Then look at the kind amount of the asset. You remove depreciation. So I can have gain or loss on disposal. So we have this exercise here. Okay. Let me see. Oh, I don't want to rush this area because this is the one last thing that we need to learn, which is the fixed asset register. Okay. All right. You permit me to stop here. I don't want to rush this area at all. So in our next class, please go and take a look at what we have done. Okay, please. So in our next class, I will start from gain or loss on disposal. We're going to look at this question. Then I will look at this big question. Okay, I'll look at this big question. Then we say bye-bye to 16. I don't want to rush. Okay, because I'm already looking at time. I need to also enter strategic business reporting class. Exactly 9. Okay, so let me just allow you to digest what I've done so far and what we have explained so far. So if you have questions, you have my number, please you can call or you send a chat to me. I'll be glad to answer a question. Any question for me? There's no question, so you'll get a recording later tonight that you can also watch again and fine-tune all those gray areas, prepare for that exam. So thank you so much. Enjoy your evening. Take care.